Hello again. Harold Wilson famously remarked that a week is a long time in politics. The truth of this statement can be seen when we look at the amazing comeback of British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. A fortnight ago, it looked as though it was all up for him and that people had finally realised what many of us knew long ago, that he is a cunning weasel who lives by deception and lies and doesn't think that the rules he makes apply to him and his cronies. There was talk of his being ousted as leader of the Conservative Party and odds were being laid on who would succeed him as Prime Minister. He really looked hunted and defeated, and it seemed obvious that he couldn't last much longer. Now, though, he's sprung back with renewed vigour, and it no longer looks as though he's on the way out. It even appears that he has no intention of resigning if fined for breaching the laws relating to lockdown. This really is the greatest political comeback that I can recall offhand, and it's interesting to see what has brought it about. We can sum this up with one word: Ukraine. For much of his life, Boris Johnson has venerated Winston Churchill, and he's even written a book about his hero called The Churchill Factor: How One Man Made History. Unfortunately, most reviewers saw through this at once as a thinly disguised advertisement for the wonderful and unconventional virtues of Johnson himself. One reviewer said of the book that, while Johnson is clearly an admirer of Churchill, it can be difficult to see what new insights he brings to the study of the statesman. The obvious subtext, of course, is that Johnson is seeking to compare his own reputation as a political maverick with that of Churchill. Even more cruelly, the reviewer for the Independent newspaper said, "The book says perhaps less about Churchill than it does about the ambition and self-image of Boris Johnson." In short, Boris Johnson actually wants to be Winston Churchill and has been waiting for the opportunity to get stuck into the role. Now he thinks that his time has arrived, and what is even more alarming, a lot of other people seem to think so as well. Just before jetting off to Munich, Johnson staged one of the most outrageous publicity stunts I've ever seen in this country. He visited RAF Wallington in Lincolnshire and had a fighter jet flown in from RAF Coningsby, which is 15 miles away, solely and purely so that he could clamber into the cockpit and be photographed looking statesmanlike and giving the thumbs up. You can see him posing in this awful way in the thumbnail to this video. Even worse, he ordered a maritime patrol aircraft to be flown 330 miles from its base in Scotland so that he could have his picture taken standing in front of it with a bunch of RAF personnel. He really is shameless. Mind, it seems to have done the trick. By making speeches at Munich and warning of the possibility of a devastating war in Europe, he does seem to have distracted people and made them think about this rather than the fact that he might be about to be fined by the police. Of course, others have played this kind of game before. Liz Truss, the Foreign Secretary, was shown in a tank the other day, and Margaret Thatcher was famously photographed with her head sticking out of the turret of a tank herself. That kind of thing does rather appeal to people. For the last few days, Johnson has been among his own kind, that is to say vain and shallow politicians, and they at least seem to buy his act. Justin Trudeau has paid homage to Johnson, saying that he is a man who gives people history lessons. All in all, our Prime Minister has managed to weather the storm. An attempt to unseat him now or organise a vote of no confidence by members of his own party will look small-minded and malicious. How on earth could we do without him now? He's the only one standing between us and the Russians. There is no doubt that the crisis in Ukraine has come at just the right time for Johnson. It really is a godsend. I suppose that there is always the danger that it will fizzle out without a full-scale war, in which case Boris Johnson might still face awkward questions about his activities in Downing Street during the lockdown, but I think that unlikely. All the signs are that the Russians will launch an attack, and that will be front-page news for weeks, overshadowing any minor news, such as the Prime Minister of Great Britain getting a criminal record.